Hey guys, today we're going to talk about Chapter 12, Active Reading Strategies. As I'm sure many of you have already figured out, college entails a lot of reading, and so here's some strategies that we're going to talk about that might just make it a little bit more effective for you. This is an activity I always start with the class, so you're welcome to pause the video and try it out yourself. The first thing I would have students do is read this as fast as you can. The goal is to get through reading it before anybody else. And then I would ask the class what the procedure is describing. Is specifically describing a task that we do pretty regularly. Very few. I think I've had one in my years that I've actually been able to tell through the speed reading. So then we try it again, and I leave it up, and everybody has as much time as they need. And more often than not, most of the class can figure out the second time. And the reason is two key differences. One, they have the time to read through it, right? Go back and reread it, whatever they need to do. And also, I've given them some direction. They know that they are looking for something specific out of this text, and they're not just reading it for the sake of reading it. And those are things that we can apply to our college reading. See if you can figure out the task. So we say if you can, write in your book. So if you can underline, circle key terms, that'll be a good way when you go back to study and you're compiling those master set of notes like we talked about from your note-taking lecture, an easy way to go back through that information without having to reread the entire text. That being said, I know a lot of us, I know myself, used to buy books so I could turn around and sell them as soon as the class was done and try to get back as much money as I could. So totally understand that. I used Post-its, which you'll see on the slide, and I made my notes in the Post-its, and then I put them on the page where I needed to go back and reference. So you can get creative with your note-taking, but you should have a note-taking strategy throughout while you're reading the text, whether it's underlining and circling key terms or writing on Post-its or something else that works for you. When you read some text, write a brief summary either in the margins on a piece of paper that you can put in the book. Again, the Post-it notes, something that will help you kind of elaborate. Because remember from our memory lecture and our note-taking, elaboration is the best way to really get that information, to really make sure we understand that information, and then to start building it into our long-term memory. And then you can also create mind maps. Again, this is going back to that note-taking lecture that we talked about last week, reading the text and then going back, pulling those key concepts and creating a mind map out of them. So it's a better way for you to understand that information. Of course, read when you're fully awake. I think we've all been guilty of trying to read something right before we go to bed and falling asleep before we finished it. We all have different times when we are most active with mainly our brain. When we just can synthesize information better. I know I work better late mornings and early afternoons is my best times. Those are going to be different for you, so figure out those best times that you would be more engaged in the reading, times that you're not just drained if you can, you're not going to be easily distracted. Read with that pen or highlighter in your hand so that you can mark that text as we talked about. Interact with the idea, so this goes back to the summarizing. Ask questions and answer them. If there's questions at the end of the text, can you answer them after you finished your reading? Of course, paraphrase, and that's that elaboration piece we talked about. And then, however, you can make personal connections. Can you take this reading and connect it to a memory you have or to a person you know? That is going to strengthen that memory process and that understanding process if you can somehow incorporate it to something that makes sense in your life. All right, so this is just a longer way to think about, remember the CRAP system, C-R-A-A-P. You want to think about when you're looking at this information, what is the context it was written in? Who was the intended audience? A lot of your textbooks, you are the intended audience. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes they were written for other academics, and that's going to make that writing a little bit more complicated to go through, and you might want to have more time for that writing. What was their purpose? Was it entertaining to explain? Definitely you want to know if it's to persuade and what you think about that. How is it organized? Is it something that can help you as you read through it? Their tone. Is it lighthearted? Is it serious? And then what tools do they use to accomplish their purpose? So this is important, especially if you're using, let's say, an article for a research purpose. Are they using facts and figures and direct quotes? That's all okay. Personal experience is fine, but do they have anything else to back it up? Do you have other literature to back it up, or is it just their personal experience and it's kind of the exception? You can use all those in the paper, but you have to be able to explain that. And then what's their thesis? What is their main argument or idea? That's going to be key for you to know if you're doing a research project and you're going through several articles, get to the thesis, and that will tell you if the article is something that you can use or if you need to move on and find more articles to help develop your arguments. All right, so this is an activity to help you make your reading more effective. The first thing we want you to do is go through and survey the reading, develop some questions that you can answer while you're reading it, do the actual reading, then go through and recall, recite as much as you can. And then again, if it's a textbook and there's maybe some questions at the end of the chapter, use those. Can you answer those questions and go back through the reading? And then you're going to want to review, right? Moving things through our memory requires a lot of repetition, which we know. Doesn't mean rereading the chapter a bunch of times. It means following these steps and then going back and reviewing those key terms, reviewing notes that you made, highlighting sections, or did you use Post-its, reviewing all of that.